let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover.
Yep. All right. So for the ones that don't have the white paper yet, you will see there in the chat the link to download that. So don't worry, you're going to have it here in the presentation. You see in the top corner the QR code. Perfect. So let's get started. One thing, so we're going to talk about navigating Amazon's increasing fees back in 2024. You probably seen all of the news happening and all of the changes. One thing that caught my attention when I saw the statistics was this graphic about the Amazon's profit. So by 2022, when Amazon launched the report, the NF report of the profits and putting that out, they were losing money in 2022. And their job in 2023 was to stop losing money and actually make money. And if you can see how 2.7 billions, they were down 2.7 billions, and just in Q1 in 2023, they recovered that. One of the things was because they increased the fees, and a huge impact was the 2023 fees. And now in 2024, it's even worse. So one of the things that also is extremely interesting is how much Amazon is taking out of your revenue when you sell in FBA. And not only because you pay the program, you pay the fulfillment fees, but also because you're investing in ads. So if you've been here long enough and you've been selling on Amazon, let's say since 2014, in 2014, if you sell the $100, back then you were only paying $19 to Amazon, both for fulfillment and ads. Right now in 2023, we pay, or that's the two first quarters of 2023, we pay $45 out of $100 that we sell on Amazon with the fees, which is insane. And the other part, and what we're going to be focusing on today, is the fulfillment side of it. All of the fees that are coming up and how much money Amazon is taking from that. So in this chart, you will see that in 2015, Amazon used to subsidize our fulfillment costs, right? 70% of it was covered from the seller side and 30% was covered by them. So, that was the big attraction or the big move that they had to do for sellers to come into the platform and start, offering their services. That's over because in 2023, just in the first 2 quarters, with the change that they did last year on the fees, we are already ourselves covering 100% of the fulfillment costs. And that means fees of internal distribution to the last mile to the client, storage, and all of the things that are internally in the structure when you use FBA. So the main question here is, what is driving this? And one thing is, this chart is so funny. The next one, when you see in 2019, we only had 3 fees. FBA fulfillment, you cannot get away with that. Like if you want to use FBA, that's what you need to do. Storage fees, you cannot also go away without paying that. And long-term storage. Those are the 3 things that we had in 2019. In 2024, as you can see, there is a whole list of it. And 3 of them, the ones that you see like in pinkish, the inbound placement, the peak and non-peak fee, and the FBA fulfillment, those are the ones that are granted. Those are the ones that if you use FBA, you will pay those fees. The other ones that are in green, those are the reflection on how well you maximize or how well you do inventory management and forecasting. So a lot of the webinar will be about covering those fees, the ones that you can control, right? And how you will control it with the proper strategies. So you can see, and this is something that Chelsea will touch on a lot, is in the past, the good sellers that do good forecasting used to subsidize the ones that were doing a bad job because Amazon was averaging all of the fees and charging people more than what they're supposed to be charged. Right now, in 2024, that model, we will see that the people that do well with the inventory management and forecasting will actually potentially decrease their fees if versus the people that keep doing the same thing. So completely different paradigm. 2024 will be definitely the year where you will change all of your processes to do inventory management and forecasting.
So yeah, let's go over some of the fees. So I know that you guys are probably familiar with these, but what we're doing is we're comparing what happened in 2023 next to what is coming down the pike in 2024. And so as you can see from this column, the change column, you can see that there are several fees that increase. We've got the aged inventory fee that increased significantly. And this is looking at a specific scenarios, right? Specific tiers, right? Size tiers. For FBA fulfillment fees, you can see it actually changed. It decreased. So that's a big shift. And one of the reasons I feel that the shift was made is that you've got this FTC, these claims that Amazon has been charging immense amounts of fees to Amazon sellers. And so I believe it's a good faith gesture toward the FTC to have them reduce some fees and then target their specific cost centers, which are the storage fees and the removal fees, all of the fees having to do with the moving of inventory and the inventory not turning over. And so they're specifically targeting, as Vanessa said, those sellers who are not that great at inventory management. All of these other fees related to storage and related to excess inventory and to too little inventory have increased. We've got a new inventory, the low inventory level fee, which I saw from the poll results that this is the fee that is most concerning to people. And so we're going to go into more detail about that and about the details of what that fee is. So let's talk about the timeline. Here's the timeline, and you'll see some of these fees have already taken effect. And there are several that are going to be activated later on this year. So you've got the holiday peak and the fulfillment fees that increased for last quarter. You've got some apparel referral fees were reduced. So you've got that theme of some of these fees being reduced, lower referral fees for some categories. The aged inventory surcharge change has already taken place. So it's important to note that you have to get inventory moved through the system before it hits a certain bracket. You've got the changes in fulfillment fees, March 1st, inbound placement fee. That's one that's concerning to people as well. And then April 1st is when the low inventory level fee kicks in. And that is something that you can plan for in advance. So if you know it's coming out, you should definitely create a strategy. And we actually have that to share with you. And then go ahead.
So before we even get into FBA, we need to talk about how are we going to get there. And this year, they implement a fee called inbound placement. So with the inbound placement, that is not a new thing, but before it was a setting under your FBA fulfillment where you could disable or enable it depending on what you want. So it basically reflects right now, Amazon is saying, we're going to charge you a fee for the cost that we have, but of distributing the inventory across the fulfillment network. For example, you used to send inventory to North Carolina and Charleston, and they will, break down that inventory and they will send it across the network to fulfill demand, right? Closer to the customer. Right now, they're saying okay, you're going to pay for that. The seller will pay for that. And there are 3 influencing factors. Depending on your product type and the quantities that you have under your shipment plan, and here in product types, I refer to the tier in the fulfillment, let's say the standard size, large charge, flammable apparel, or so on. Then you have existing inventory across the network. So Amazon will reroute you in case you have too much inventory in a specific area, and also the end location for the demand. So how far they need to spread out that inventory, they will charge you for that. And this is a variable fee. So if you see in the next one, you will see that we have a premium service that used to be optional, that used to be like, if you want to send everything to one fulfillment center, you will pay for that premium service. And in the past, it was like between 30 cents and 40 cents a unit. Right now, the premium service depends on the tier of the size of your product. And as you see, it's variable. It's a range from, let's say in the small standard for 16 ounces or less, it's 21 cents to 30 cents. And the reason why, it's because there are higher fees when you send this to the West. So if you send it in the US to the West, they will charge you more for it. And they will take that fee to spread it and, pay for the distribution in the internal network. You need to account for this if you're selling pallets. So if you're sending inventory in big pallets, and obviously you want that to go to the same location, you probably will incur in the premium service, because if not, Amazon will break down your shipment. Let's say you're trying to sell or send 1,000 units. It used to be done in a pallet, and now either you pay the premium service per unit, or you're gonna pay the discount service, which is the other part. But this one has a huge caveat that it's very interesting. And we cannot pull the numbers yet because we don't know how they're going to roll out. But it says that you can receive up to 100% discount of the premium service based on you distributing your inventory across the network. Instead of sending one pallet of 1,000 units to one warehouse, you will send 10 different shipments to 10 different warehouses. And you have a chance to get 100% discount on the fee. But not necessarily. If they send inventory to a specific location and then Amazon needs to redistribute that in the network, you will get charged a fee, a percentage of the premium service. So the discount will vary on the amount of shipments and the locations. And the interesting part is that you will only see this 45 days after your shipment is received in the inbound location, because they will account for the inbound location and for the quantities that they receive at that inbound location. So when you create a shipment plan, when this goes in place, I think it's February 1st, when this goes in, you will see an estimation of what you will pay for this inbound placement fee. But it's only after the 45 days after the shipment is received that you will see that charge in your payment statement. So this is one of the things that you need to be very, very careful. And you can offset this fee if you use AWD. So the other one is after you get into a network. So when you get into a network, you know that one of the fees that we cannot get away by paying is the fulfillment fee. And right now, we already know how the fulfillment works and everything is great. But a huge thing that changed this year was that they broke down the tiers again. They did it in 2023. They did it again this year. So instead of having 9 tiers for sizes, now we have more than 16. Because now there's a small standard size goes in an interval of 2 ounces. Large is 4 ounces. There's no change for apparel products, but they're replacing all of the things that are oversized with a new weight and dimensions revision. So pay attention to this. Chelsea will cover that in a bit. When you go into a lower tier, there is an opportunity for you to, in 2024, being paying less for fulfillment fees because you're falling now in a tier lower since the interval changes or change. And there's also an opportunity for you to do that on purpose this year if you want to pay less. So these are the changes right there. And Chelsea will cover the case study for you to see how will that impact your bottom line. Perfect. So let's talk about capacity limits. Before I move forward, answering the question, the low inventory fee will apply for the US or North America.
Oh, yeah.
Also Europe. We still don't see it in Asia though, right?
No, what we're seeing is that it's only in pan EU. So not in the UK, only in pan EU. And if we go back to the logic on inventory distribution, the UK is a relatively small country, so they don't have the problems with having to express orders and be able to meet the shipping requirements. So you're seeing it in areas where Amazon's spread the inventory out and they need to have that proper distribution, which is why you've got it in the US and why you've got it in pan EU.
Yeah. And the other thing that we're going to cover, one question was like, so now they're charging us to have low inventory and also charging us to have a lot of inventory. So in reality, if you learn how to manage inventory properly, you don't need to pay any of those fees. So the next point is the FBA capacity limits. Right now, if you know, in the past, we used to have the weekly restock that happened during the pandemic. We have the API that got us the quarterly storage volume limits. That was replaced by the capacity limit. And with the capacity limit, they basically determine how much inventory you can send to FBA in a month, right? They announce this every third Monday of the month prior to the one that's going to get open. So you have a week to assess what you're going to do. If you're going to bid for more or remove inventory, we're going to talk about that. And the each storage option has its own capacity limits. Somebody was saying in the chat, oh, well, for dangerous goods, the limits are really low. That's true. And I don't see Amazon releasing that to more inventory. And that's probably will be one of the categories that will get impacted the most for the low inventory fee, for sure. And the FBA capacity limit is influenced by the IPI and the sales performance. So if you see in this slide, the how you see the UI in Seller Central, you basically have each specific storage option on top, and then your level or your capacity, volume for that specific month. So in this chart, you will see what you have on hand plus what you have on shipment, and those together shouldn't be above the maximum amount of volume that you have available for that month. So what happens is that if you see there, I have February. So right now I already had February, which is next month. I can plan for that. And the estimations for March and April. That doesn't mean that if you see there it's 12,000 and then 10,000, that doesn't mean that it will be that number, but they're estimating for us to plan better. Sometimes it's a little bit lower, but I haven't seen a dramatic change, let's say from 12,000 to 2,000. That doesn't happen because they want you to plan accordingly. So what are the repercussions when you overstock? Like, this is one thing that when you have above the capacity limits, we have two things that will happen. So we can see the overage fees or the reservation fee. Research. Okay. So the overage fees, when we have inventory on hand, that means that it's in the FBA warehouse plus our receiving or the ones that are inbound. If we go above our capacity, they will charge us $10 per cubic foot per month for the exceeding limit. So let's say that they limit my capacity to 1,000 square foot, but I have 1,100, right? So for those 100 cubic foot, I will pay $10 per. So that will give me the overage fees. That's per month.
And it's calculated on a daily basis as well. So as you sell through, you have less and less being charged, but it's calculated daily.
Yeah, and that gets extremely expensive. What's the other option? Paying the reservation fee. Well, I guess that in the next slide you will see the next option, but the reservation fee is what you could do when this capacity limit hits you on the third Monday of the month, where they give you a limit, but you know that you're gonna have more inventory. You can bid for that space, and the bidding is based on your budget. You can bid whatever you want per cubic foot. So you already know that Amazon is charging $10 per cubic for the month. So obviously you want to bid below $10 because if not, it's better or cheaper to pay the overage fees. And that's the other system and the other algorithm that we need to play around with if we do reservation fees or if we bid for space, is that they will give you credits, performance credits, that's how they're called, per dollar that you sell with that extra space. What does that mean? Let's say that you bid for 100 cubic foot of inventory that you need to send extra. You're going to pay, let's say, $1,000, just as an example. If you sell all of that inventory in that month, Amazon will give you the performance credits for you to cover that reservation fee. Therefore, at the end of the month, you're not paying the reservation fee. But you need to be pretty sure that you can sell that inventory. And sometimes rushing into selling more will mean that you will need to spend more money on advertising or even lowering the price in order to get more sales in. So it's a double sword. It's like here because I don't see how the capacity limits or the bidding system is a good way to do it. So what you need to pay attention then is managing your IPI and managing your sales performance, which means the sell-through rate. If that's higher constantly, and if you work to have that really high, then you will never see these things in your account, hopefully. And the last option, which is the thing that you will do, and guys, I actually almost didn't want to put this in the presentation because I feel that nobody should ever do removals or disposal with things because of bad forecasting. But we're gonna talk about, we cannot get away with removals if people return our product and they're unfulfillable. We still pay for removals. So this year they increased the fees just a little bit, but after a dramatic increase that happened in 2023. So the fees are the same. Every time you remove the inventory, they will charge you this fee for removal per unit, depending on your size tier. And also, one thing that it was kind of like hidden in the policy, in the changes of 2024, was something around a fee that they will charge you when your inventory or your products are above a return rate, a threshold in the return rate of the category. What does that mean? Let's say that you sell apparel and the threshold of return in apparel as a whole category is 20%. So 20% of the products that get sold under their category get returned. If you have inventory with return rate of 35%, you're gonna get a fee on top of your removal and disposal because the return that's coming from the customer, that's where you get charged that plus the removing it from FBA. So this fee is one that I don't really like, meaning using it as a mechanism to get rid of inventory in the warehouse because it gets extremely expensive. And sometimes it's even faster to do like a flash sale or investing a lot in or lowering the price to get rid of inventory. So yeah, that's a big change there. And now, like, I hope that you guys still with us because I know that this is mind blowing. And again, please, I know you can be, there are two types of people that will see these fees. The one that will just complain, feel anxious, and I saw some comments over there that feel anxious, stressed, or, overwhelmed. And I understand why. This is not easy. But if you want to play this game long term, just like go through white paper, you can watch this presentation again and see how you can forecast and play this game better. Because as Chelsea mentioned in the presentation, there is a possibility for you to pay less fees this year than what you were paying in 2023. It's just about of doing it right. And there are already tools for that, and we're going to help you at the end of the presentation. You will see what we have for you so you can get better at it. But, consider those things. And the other person is the one that will just make an action plan and start implementing the changes that they need to do in their business?
Yeah, so to Vanessa's point, there are specific things that you can do, specific strategies for fee prevention. Right? We have to start thinking in terms of fee prevention. And a big part of fee prevention is fee forecasting. So if you understand what the fees are, you know what the rules of the fee are, then you can start planning your business around that so that you can avoid these. Because inventory is a slow-moving boat. It's not as easy as turning off your ad spend, right? In order to reduce your fees, you have to allow the time to either sell through or to get the inventory into Amazon. So it takes a lot of foresight and prior planning. So understanding these fees is the first step, like we talked about. And again, a push for the white paper, because that breaks everything down. And then being able to proactively plan. So here's some of the things that you can do to avoid each of these fees. You've got the inbound placement fee, and this is a tough one. You've got multi-location that can help you to avoid specific fees. The inbound placement fee, and hopefully a good portion of that other fee, but then you also have AWD. And again, it's actually the star should be on the AWD. It's run the numbers. It can get really expensive to do multi-location. And then with AWD, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking because you're still going to be dealing with Amazon. And so it's not as easy as picking up the phone, calling your 3PL, and handling a situation. You're dealing with the support that Amazon offers, which we know isn't that great. So that's the inbound placement fee. Those are your options there. And then with the monthly storage fee, there are a couple of things you can do. Increase your sell-through, right? Ship more often. If you're shipping more often, you're turning over your inventory more often, your storage fees are going to be lower. And then consider looking at your product and resizing it. There is a resizing audit that we do that helps to figure out. You want to look at your fee tier and see if your product should be in a lower fee tier. Is it possible to get Amazon to remeasure that? You can do a remeasure request. And then the other thing to look at is it possible to work with your supplier to reduce the size? That is another strategy. If you can get the cubic feet down, then you can reduce your monthly storage. Then you have the aged inventory surcharge. The same things that apply to monthly storage will apply to that. Tracking your age also helps. So if you've got products that are going to be moving into a segment, 6 months or more, where they're going to age, especially at the 9-month mark, when it jumps up to $5.45 per cubic foot, track your age. I download the aged inventory surcharge report. It's under the fulfillment in the section of payments. Download that and take a look at the age of your inventory. It's right there. Increase sell-through, liquidate as a last resort. If that's something where you run the numbers and you see liquidation is going to be less expensive than actually incurring those hefty fees. Storage utilization surcharge. I'm not going to go into this in great detail. This is, it's same things apply as to the other storage fees. This is a fee that is applied. It's calculated on the amount of inventory for your whole catalog, and it's for very slow selling catalogs as a whole. Amazon themselves said they calculated only 7% of sellers will ever see this fee. And so I imagine the majority of people on this call are not within that 7%. So we won't get into it. Removal, disposal, liquidation. As Vanessa covered, inventory forecasting, proper inventory forecasting will mean that you don't have to have to resort to that. But then the other factor, reducing your return rate, will also help, because when you get items returned to you, removal orders that send inventory back to you, the return rate, lowering the return rate means you're lowering that removal rate. Then you have FBA capacity bids. Reduce your excess inventory so that you're not hitting that capacity. and then considering your best and worst scenarios. So before you go into placing a reservation bid, you want to consider, are you requesting and sending too much inventory in? What are you want to be paying in terms of that reservation bid? What would you pay in terms of your overage fees if, worst case scenario, you didn't sell that inventory? So you consider that, and then you consider your best case scenario if you ended up not being influenced by those fees and you were able to move that inventory properly. Consider those two things when you make that decision. Then you have peak and non-peak. Sell through your inventory, your non-holiday inventory before the fourth quarter. So paying attention to the fact that the fourth quarter, the fulfillment fees may get higher. They did last time. They had peak fulfillment fees. They haven't announced that yet, but they usually wait until we're closer to kind of surprise us and throw us that curveball. And then you have the storage fees, which are still at $2.40 per cubic foot. A lot of people got surprised by their bank account. They had their account was deducted, major, tens of thousands of dollars. We saw the posts. So be sure that you're selling through any of the inventory that you don't need to hold for Q4. So that it's not just sitting there and you're being charged all these fees. Low inventory level, track days of supply, like we talked about, raising your price, reducing your ads, all of those things we covered. And then, of course, FBA fulfillment fees. One strategy for this, you're always going to pay this. There's no getting around it, but you can resize into lower size tiers. So that product resizing, we actually have a free tool that is on sostock.com/tools. There's a product resizer that you can do on a single use. If you think that you've got a product that might be in that lower size tier, you can run the calculations and see what would it take to get into a lower size tier. How much weight would you have to reduce? How much would you have to reduce in terms of the actual size of the product, what that change is, and then what the financial impact is. If you've got a product that sells very high volume, you may be looking at thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in savings just by resizing that product. And it would influence your fulfillment fees as well as your storage fees. All right. So like Vanessa said, I know this is a bit overwhelming, all of this data, but here are some things that you can do right away to start to move forward with proactively addressing these concerns. First, I would find the new size tier, see if any of your products are going to be fit within those new size tiers, and understand what your new fulfillment fees will be, right? They'll be lower, but how much lower? If you get affected by those size tiers, then you could see a decent deduction in those fees. Calculate your inbound costs. So make the decision as to look at how the inbound fee is going to affect you, and what is the best choice for you. Is it to do the inbound, or is it to do the multi-location? And it has a lot to do with whether you palletize, if you're sending in less than truckload, full truckload. So run those calculations as best as you can. Know your inventory age. Like I mentioned, under fulfillment reports, you go to the payment section, and it's the aged inventory surcharge report. So find that out and then liquidate any inventory before April 1st. So if you've got products that are currently slow moving and you are planning to liquidate them anyway, and by liquidate, I don't mean liquidate, I mean to sell through. So I should have said sell through. So sell through that inventory before April 1st. Make sure that you do that before the April 1st deadline. Otherwise, as you're selling through that inventory, you're going to incur the extra fees. So, and then forecasting for fees, not just inventory forecasting, but understanding the fee structures and then forecasting to see what your fee liabilities are. What do you have currently in your catalog that is selling slowly that's going to cause you to incur the low inventory fees? What are the inventory items that are aged too much and are causing you fees? And even look at your sales velocity compared to your MOQ. If you've got a high MOQ and you have to order items in advance and have 5 months worth of inventory, you shouldn't send all that inventory to Amazon. You should develop a strategy where you hold some of that inventory. You might be able to have your supplier hold some of that inventory and keep that inventory, hopefully not charging you storage fees, but finding other alternatives to having your inventory in Amazon in excess. All right, we made it through, guys.
Thank you so much for your time.